Good morning and welcome to the third installment of Risky Bizz on the Industrial Observation Network. I'm excited, pleased, and honored to have as our guest today, longtime good friend of mine, author of several books, serial entrepreneur, successful master promoter, great family man, and dad. Please welcome Doug Cornfield.
Well, I kind of heard that intro. I'm not so sure about all that there, Jim.
Well, that's how I remember you.
Well, that's probably a little more promo.
Welcome, my friend.
And we're shaking hands.
Yeah, that's all right. 21 years we've known each other, so we've got some great stories to share. And I mentioned in the intro, successful dad. And you got some bragging rights. So let's start with the bragging rights, because it's pretty impressive. I've watched your children grow up. I know most of them. Mm-hmm. And I see them in the summertime, and I've seen them at their part-time jobs. So share with us some of the recent success, because it's definitely bragging rights.
Well, some of them are obviously still in high school, but even there, just successful students, good kids, quality kids, and that's really the most important thing. And and of course, being a father of 7, most people don't have that in there. And one wife, just for the record, for the people listening in. My wife and I have been married for going on 32 years, I think is what it is, which is really crazy. But no, we have 7 children. My oldest is 30. She just had some success, in her business world. And she's had other successes. Her and her husband have a car vintage storage place in the Finger Lakes of New York, which is really cool. She's also a yoga instructor. COVID's kind of put the hindering on that. And just recently, not sure how many thousands of ladies auditioned for a television part, but she was picked to be a part of a television program that's going to air, or it's not air, it's going to film in May in New York City. And it's funny because she's going to play the role of Janet in this particular Friendly Distractions. I was trying to think of the name of, at least the working name.
I saw the post.
Right. And the poster is very professional, as you saw.
Yep.
And so she's going to be the role of Janet, one of 3 females, and there's 3 male main characters in this particular TV series. And they're going to, I think, do 3, and don't quote me on that, but they're going to, basically do 3 television shows.
Sure.
To start and see where it takes her from there.
Yeah.
But she was picked out of a lot of women to play
so
that role.
let's tell our viewers her name and a little bit
Well,
about...
it's Delian Lindcourt, I guess, is her married name, and that's what she's using for her role, or whatever her acting name is, Delian Lindcourt.
You'll get a chance to meet Delian, and hopefully this series will take off. So I know Delian, and I know her personality. So is,
and her model looks to take after me, right?
Yeah. No, she definitely takes after her mom. But so will she be a hero,
don't know.
Antagonist?
I have no idea.
You don't have any idea what her character is?
No clue.
So I'm a fan already. I'm just gonna watch it because I know her.
Well, she was in a mini short movie, or whatever you want to call it, last year, or 2 of them actually. She got filmed in, and one of them was a Halloween one, and another one was kind of like this action adventure things where she's shooting guns and the whole bit, and monsters are coming after her, and so it's a little different to see your daughter. And one of them actually won some short movie award.
I didn't know that.
And so that aired last fall, got some press in the industry. It's not like one of those things that everybody knows about. But she had some success there, and she's done some behind-the-scene things with some television shows where she's been picked as an extra and all that kind of stuff. And this is like her first, I would say, potential key main role. So pretty cool.
That's good. And tell us a little bit about your oldest son.
My oldest son.
Jared, right?
Jared.
Who is literally following in your shoes.
Somewhat, except he's coaching. And I thought about going coaching route, when I was in college. I thought I might want to teach and coach. Just entrepreneurial world took me another direction during those days. But my son Jared is a coach of a very successful cross-country and track team. They've been ranked #1 for basically the last 5 years in the cross-country world. He's the kind of the head recruit. I don't know if he's head recruiter, really the head coach is the head of everything, but he does a lot of the recruiting. prospecting, finding out which kids they want to go after, contacting those kids. And this because he signed already the top recruit in the nation for 2021's fall season. He's brought in the top, not one of the top recruits in the last 3 years in a row. And just a Monday and a week ago, or whatever, the Northern Arizona University became national cross-country champs again, and this was their 4th out of 5 years of winning, and he's been a part of that team for now 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, you've earned some bragging rights.
I guess, I mean, it's fun to see your kids' success. They're good kids, and that's really more important.
Sure.
They're just quality adults now, and that's the most important.
At the top,
and they've given me some grandkids too.
Oh, well, yeah, that's important.
At least Jared has, and I have 4 grandkids altogether.
I've been meaning to get up to the classic car area around the Finger Lakes because it's in our neighborhood,
right?
And I'm a car guy, so
right.
I've seen some pictures and I follow them on Facebook. So
well, you're gonna love it when you get there. They're not letting visitors in right now, but. So
I've seen some pictures. They got some great cars.
Yeah, I'm not a car guy either, but I'm not a car guy. You are.
Yeah.
But it's still cool,
Yeah.
It's still pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned movies, and that's a nice way to segue into some of the stuff you're doing. We have to put a pause because I have to recognize Sports Medicine Concepts. They're our sponsor. We're in their studio.
Beautiful studio.
Yeah, it's a beautiful studio. So we want to mention those. Anybody has an athlete or is an athlete, you certainly want to get to know who Sports Medicine Concepts is, what they do, what they bring to the world, and you can find them. I know that our production guy will put a link to their website on the video. So with that said, let's talk a little bit about the movie. I mentioned at the top of the conversation that you were a master promoter.
Yeah, I don't know about that. But
well, yeah.
Master crazy person, maybe.
Yeah, so this conversation could be some challenging because you ever since I've known you, you always are promoting somebody else. It's Disability Dream and Do. So now you've got the cameras on.
I like it that way.
Yeah, you're a master promoter. And you're a genius at it. But now I'm here promoting you. So let's talk a little bit about Doug Cornfield.
I mean, I don't know if I'm a master promoter, and not to be false humility or any of those kind of things. What I am is I've not been afraid of going after things that I think are worthy. And so when I met Dave Clark, who has been, you've known him more,
sure.
You've known of him or known him longer than I have. But when I found out about Dave Clark's story and having a child, to put background to this, as you well know, I have a son who's now 22 years old, who was born with neither arm. Mm-hmm. And 21 years ago, I met Dave Clark when he was still coaching in our area after a very successful coaching in the Swedish major leagues. But I read an article about him when I was at a coffee shop in Atlanta. And I was moving my family to Corning, New York, where Dave grew up. Reading this article, coming from an athletic background, scholarship athlete at the University of Georgia. My father was a world-class athlete, all those kind of things. But I couldn't believe what I was reading when I'm reading about a guy 5'2" and on crutches playing baseball, but not just playing baseball, having a 10-year career of pitching in the minor leagues. And how the heck do I not know about this?
Yeah.
That's really what I was saying. And then the most amazing thing while I was in that Atlanta coffee shop is the article. It was just like the Atlanta Journal or Constitution, I can't remember which one. It said that he was the Hero of Sports Award winner. There was a lot of big Nike people and all that stuff. It was a big deal. It was a national award presented at the convention center in Atlanta. And it said he was from Corning, New York. Well, and I know how small Corning, New York is. And it's where my wife grew up. So it was pretty amazing that here this guy with playing and pitching on crutches was from this little town that I was moving to. And I got to meet Dave. And we actually met at a baseball field, as apropos as that would be, after a game that he was a pitching coach for a little minor league team in Elmira at the time, professional minor league team. Went up to him in the dugout. As he remembers it, I had Gideon in my arms. And and we met after the game. He said, hey, let me finish up here or whatever, and we met after the game. And that became now what's a 20-year relationship of me pulling his story out of his soul.
Sure.
And saying, this doesn't make sense, and it still didn't make sense. And here I'm seeing this now 40-some-year-old, at that point, 45-year-old man on crutches. How did you play baseball on crutches?
Yeah.
And we had breakfast. I could say the rest is history, but we're still building the history.
Sure.
And we're still continuing on with speaking, books that we're writing, a new book that I've got coming out. Not just sharing his story, but now 30 other great stories that
Sure.
we've been able to pull in along the
An
way.
interesting thing, I love hearing Dave speak because I think I think I've heard every story.
Yeah.
And and I'll say, okay, here comes the story. I hear this one. I'm like, whoa, I didn't hear that story.
Right.
But there's one big thing that you and Dave have in common, and that is Dave had incredible parents.
Yeah.
And Gideon has incredible parents, because if you were, everyone in the audience, if you were to meet Gideon today, you would see, your thing would be, well, okay, he's challenged. Gideon is not challenged. He can do anything you can do. Some things better.
Some things better,
yeah, some things better. And that all has to do with your parents' attitude when you're growing up.
Yeah.
They can see you as someone who is disability, or they can see you someone who just has some challenges that you'll eventually overcome.
Jim, I think one of the reasons that I reached out to Dave and was a little more, resilient of trying to get his story out of him was being a father with a child with significant physical limitations. I mean, my son basically has no arms. He's got a short arm over
Right.
here with 3 fingers, maybe about as long as your elbow,
Yeah.
as far as where the fingers would reach. And so as a 1-year-old baby, you're just like, oh, what is he going to do? How do we raise him? So meeting Dave, what made our meeting probably a little unique, and I remember clearly, one thing I remember clearly from our first meeting, breakfast meeting, was Dave, after I peppered him with questions, he goes, nobody's ever asked me questions like this before. Because he's a guy that you get the same questions over and over. And I
Sure.
understand that now because I travel with him, I speak with him, we get interviews. People are just like, oh, how did you pitch on crutches? How did you do this? It's all that. I wasn't asking him questions like that. I was asking what your parents do.
Yeah.
I wanted to know, because here is a guy who virtually has no use of his legs that has now had a 40-year career in baseball at the highest levels.
Right.
Coaching in the Olympics, coaching for the Atlanta Braves, getting carried off the field as a major league championship team in the Swedish major leagues as a coach. I wanted to know what his parents did.
Sure.
And I think that was probably the difference
Yep.
of our meeting at first. And so that's, and he was gracious enough to answer the questions and sit down with me. And a lot of that had to do because he knew I had a son with severe limitations.
Sure. And I happened to be in the audience on some of those questions, and Dave tells the story. And we'll just briefly, because this is all about Doug Cornfield.
I get new stories I got a new story the other day when I was with Dave.
Well, the spotlight, the camera's on you today, but I just want to say one thing, as long as we're on the thing with the parents, is that Dave tells a story that, so here he comes home, he's got braces on, he's got polio, and he says to his dad, I want to play professional baseball.
Yeah.
And his dad's like, okay, we better practice. I mean, that says it all right there.
He actually was very afraid to tell his parents some of his dreams at first.
Sure.
But his parents, one of the beautiful things and lessons to learn, especially if you have a child with limitations, special needs, intellectual, whatever the case is don't hold them back. Let them dream. Now, don't let them run and think they can stop a train. There's limits to, you have to protect children. Any child.
Right.
But when he says he wants to go out and play hockey, if he can, let him.
Oh, by the way, he did play hockey.
Yeah, that's why I said that.
For Ithaca College.
Well,
right?
he played club for he played some club, but that was their highest level. But he got to play against Cornell, and he couldn't even skate.
He was a goalie,
and he played the college level.
And it's a great picture of his teammates
pulling him along
on the ice.
I couldn't believe when I found that picture.
That's great. You sent me that picture, and I thought, oh, that's fantastic.
It's just perfect because we had actually already started an award that Dave and I give out called the Pulling Each Other Along.
Oh, by the way, recipient.
Yes, and Jim is a recipient of helping pull us along. And the biggest way that you've helped us, Jim, is you've been a constant encouragement.
Oh, thank you so much.
There's never a time when you don't encourage me. Of course, telling me I'm great at something is yet to be seen, in my opinion.
Well,
because we haven't reached our goals.
I've watched you. You and Dave evolved. And you mentioned. Let's introduce the book. A Pound of Kindness.
I'll give it to you there.
And so, this is a great book, and it's a great story. And I'm not going to give the story away. I want you to purchase this book. As a matter of fact, if you come on, and Morgan, you can arrange this. If you come on and subscribe to the channel, Risky Bizz Industrial Observation, I will send you this book for free. It's a great story. It's laid out like a children's book. It's a story for adults, all ages. It's a great family story. I've been giving this book out as kind of my calling card because it's the way I want to live my life. It's pulling other people along. It's a really great model, a great story to share with your children. So go on, subscribe to it, give us your email, I guess, information. Would that, is that what we need, Morg?
Yeah, I'll put something up.
Yep, all right, excellent. So,
and the thing is, watch the video of this. Let's not tell them the story.
Yep, I don't want to tell them the story.
But if we can get a handful of people, 100 people, whoever's watching, 1,000 people,
sure,
to watch the video that we clipped together. Dave and I have shared this story literally all over the country.
Oh,
California, Corning Museum of Glass, Orlando at the Peabody Hotel.
New York
all these
school system.
New York school system. And so what I did when we did a Kickstarter for this particular book is I clipped together all of these times, of Dave sharing this story. And then what you do get to see on the video, and you need to have your Kleenexes for, unless you're just not a person.
That's true.
So
I've probably read this book at least 25 times. I read the story sometimes in the beginning of the day over coffee because it sets my attitude.
I tell this story.
The day.
I can't even tell you how many thousands of times I've shared the story, and I still get goosebumps sharing.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not the crying type. That's not my nature.
Yep.
But it's such a touching story. It's a true story. We kept it true, even down to his dog Duke, because Dave really had a dog Duke, and what Ernie Pound, his classmate, did for him. But what happened is 45 years later, I found his classmate, and I brought him together in a surprise reunion at the Heavenly Cup.
I was there.
Show.
I was standing in line getting a book signing.
And so I caught that on video, and you're going to see real, raw emotion that you can't make up. And Dave was surprised, of course, and
he was quite.
Well, his wife actually said it was the first time she'd ever seen him cry. Yeah, he was. And at the time, they'd been together for about 20 minutes.
Yeah,
20 years.
So it's a great story. We'll get the book out there, and get the word out. I mentioned again, master promoter. So you're on the Dave Clark story. Dave is the hero of the story. He's the star and all that. But like any other,
he calls me the icing.
Yeah, the icing. That's true. And everything needs to be promoted. I tell entrepreneurs, that one of the myths of entrepreneurship is you build a better mousetrap and people will beat a path to your door. No, everything has to be properly presented and properly promoted. And that's where you come in. You've been promoting this. And I can tell you that I met Dave probably back 1971, and I had been in Corning maybe 3 or 4 years, and I had not heard his story.
Right.
And you've said many times it's one of the best kept secrets out there.
Greatest mostly unknown sports story.
Right. And so you've been promoting it for 21 years.
Yep, just about.
And
Well, 10 officially is
10, 10
11
officially.
full-time.
So I was actually in an elevator in Chicago, and I started a conversation with a person in the elevator, and they were doing some charitable work, and I said, well, you need to check out Disability Dream and Do with Dave Clark, the only person to play professional baseball on crutches. And the look on his face, it's to this day, it's an unbelievable
It's funny because actually
story.
one of the things that I learned early in when I left the Merrill Lynch and the financial world to partner with Dave is that I actually have to dumb his story down to make it believable. I literally do.
I can believe it.
I mean, there's no doubt that, you know, when this movie's finished, and, you know, of course we're in the process of working on a movie on his life story, it's going to be dumbed down because there's no way you can put this man's story on film.
Yeah.
It will be dumbed down. It'll be amazing.
I mean, when I saw him play, he was playing first base.
Right, because you saw him in the 80s.
I saw him in the, mid 70s in there with the Clowns.
80s. It would have been the 80s.
It would have been the 80s,
Yep.
Okay. So he had thrown so many fastballs.
Well, knuckleballs mostly.
Yeah, knuckleballs, yeah, that he had worn his shoulder out. And he,
Well, and running 5 miles a day on
Yeah.
his crutches and
oh,
the things.
yeah,
that
that's the other thing too. He would run 5 miles. I haven't run 5 miles in a lap. I'm trying to remember the last time
He worked out 4 hours a day, 6 days a week.
Yeah, he would run on his crutches.
Yeah.
Yep.
But basically he blew out his elbow. Actually had James Andrews do his surgery, you know, which is for this crowd of people that know the sports world, that's pretty big. James Andrew, way back in the 80s, did his surgery on his elbow. Still didn't get it back to the point where he could really pitch again, and Dave probably didn't give it enough rest. So if anybody's recovering from an injury, make sure you give it enough rest. He got pushed by a coach to get out back on the mound and then ripped it worse. And so, you know, learning lesson number one, but that eventually that basically ended Dave's any attempt at coming back. But didn't stop him, which is what makes his story pretty crazy.
He is unstoppable force.
He's resilient. I tell people he's the most, I have a lot of nicknames for him, but one that I can actually share is he's the most resilient man.
You know, and it's funny, when I was thinking about us getting together last night, I was thinking about, you know, one of my favorite things is to reduce everything down to one word. And that came because I gave a talk on entrepreneurship one time, and somebody said, I said, any questions? And they said, yeah, this was great, except reduce it down to one word. So I was thinking about reducing our thing down to one word: resiliency.
Resilience. Yeah.
Resilience.
Yeah.
On both your parts, both Dave and you.
Yeah, but a lot of the reasons I can be resilient is because he was so resilient.
Well, that's a good point.
Right.
Because entrepreneurs, they feed off of one another. You know, some days you're having a bad day. Dave says, you know, hey, he gets you up. The other day, Dave's down.
Right.
And you get him up.
Right. There's no doubt. And that we've been doing that now for, I guess, 11 years, which.
So let's talk about your promotional journey towards this movie, because it has, you would think that this would be a great story.
So
it's like you would think producers would be lining up to tell this story.
Well,
you know,
it's like you said, you know, anybody that has a movie or a movie idea or concept, they all think, oh, my story's great. But it's never that easy. It's like, you know, one of the things that annoys me is when people say, oh, that sells itself.
Oh yeah.
You know, no, nothing sells itself. Now there might be things that go viral you didn't expect and whatever, but it still didn't sell itself. You still recorded the video, you still put it out there, you still promoted it, you still, you know, did a children's book, you shared the story. Nothing sells itself. Most things don't sell easy. But I'm not afraid of the word sell. So a lot of people, they don't like the word sell, and I don't like to use it in some fashions, but we are all selling to a point.
Yes.
And it's not a bad word. Now, if you're a pressure salesperson, if you're obnoxious, sometimes that's not so fun.
Yeah.
And I kind of take the passive role.
Sure.
In passive aggressive, I guess, is what I would say as far as my sales connection. I want to just share what we have. And if we have something you want, I'm going to share it a little bit more. And if you buy it, that's even better.
Yeah. Well, you bring value. And that's what, you know, that's what a master salesperson does. You know, they bring value. Dave is known as a motivational speaker. And when I think of Dave, he does motivate for sure. There's no doubt about it. I've seen him
speak to young.
Doesn't matter the age group.
No, it doesn't. Up and coming. I mean, I remember he spoke with a group of semi-pro hockey players, and they were just pumped. You know,
I've seen it.
when he left. So, you know, a motivational thing. But the thing behind, if you peel back that motivational layer, the thing that Dave just really demonstrates is discipline. It's one thing to be motivated, but if you don't have the discipline, it's just going to go. I mean, think about it. You're on crutches, and your dream is to become a professional baseball player.
Right.
The discipline that you have to get up every day, run the 5 miles on crutches, throw that ball against the steps, you know, hit the baseball. The other thing is the strategy.
Yeah. And you know, because he shares this in his speaking engagements or in a locker room, because we could speak with professional athletes with what we do. And he basically says you have to be able to do that work with no guarantee you're even going to get a shot.
Oh, absolutely.
And so when you get the shot, if you get the shot, you're ready for it. And that's a huge proportion of his motivational, is that if you have a dream, you can't just say, oh, I'll wait, I have good looks, somebody's going to see me in a coffee shop and they're going to pick me as an actor.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck. Does it ever happen? Yeah, it probably has happened. But what he would say is that you need to prepare for that shot. You need to be working on your skills. You need to be working on the assets. And one of the things that I think is great, he says, don't work on your weaknesses. You know, focus on your strengths. Make your strengths better.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you never work on your weaknesses, depending on what your role is or what you're trying to do. But he's like, okay, if you're good at this, let's have you work on that.
Yeah.
Because that's probably what got you to where you are already.
Yeah, sure.
You know, and so he's just a master of experiences. And because he had to look at the sports world so differently, you know, at 5'2" and on crutches, he gets looked at very differently.
Sure.
But he also looks at things very differently. When he was a child, he had to analyze, where am I going to be most competitive? Shortstop? Nope. Outfield? Nope. It's just not going to happen. There's 11 seconds for him to get to first base. He's going to clog up the infield. He's not going to be able to get to balls in the outfield. So he basically had two choices. And he was able to understand this as a child. I can play first base or I can pitch. And eventually you're not going to want a 5'2" professional baseball pitcher at the highest levels, or a first baseman, excuse me. But so it left him down to, what do I really have to work on? Is pitching. And then as a youngster, he had the mindset, I'm probably never going to pitch 90 miles an hour. Just not going to happen. What do I have to do differently? Well, you have to pitch differently. You have to think differently. And he created his own style of a knuckleball. And it's one of the things, especially with athletes, that I have to get to, because if athletes understand the knuckleball, then, oh, this is how he did it. The light bulb goes off, because that's how the light bulb went off with me. When I finally asked him, after knowing him for a while, I said, Dave, what was your pitch? What did you do? And when he said, well, I was a knuckleballer, I'm like, oh, you know, it was like, boom, the light bulb went off, Jim. And then I was literally on my old cell phone, this is 20 years ago, when he told me that. And I'm literally on my porch still talking to him. We lived in Coopers Plains at the time. And I'm literally, this should be a movie. There's no doubt this should be a movie. You know, and he was telling me stuff about the Indianapolis Clowns, which is a whole nother realm of his story. I know you had mentioned it earlier, but it's the last Negro League team that ever played. But they actually integrated white players into the team back in late 60s. They played for them in the mid 70s. Was actually considered by one of the owners as one of the top pitchers they ever had. And considering Satchel Paige is in that list and some other
Hank
greats.
Aaron played on that
Hank Aaron was
that was one of the last
team.
ones. Yeah.
He was Hank Aaron was one of the well, he was obviously the great.
Yeah.
But Indianapolis Clowns had him for about a year. And then sold his contract, and the rest is history for Hank Aaron, and unfortunately just recently passed away. But Dave has been able to meet him, and Hank Aaron actually graciously, when they ran into him, one of the stadiums, I think in Minnesota, but I'm not 100% sure. The Indianapolis Clowns were playing, and Hank Aaron made sure they were taking care of all the players
Sure.
on the team and things.
So, you know, from this day forward, I'm just going to call you Icing.
That could be a title of a book that I might have
that's
in the
your
future.
nickname now.
I have
So
a couple of other titles.
Let's get back to Icing Story, because you know you're promoting Dave Clark, and you know it's a hard job. I mean, it's still hard to this day.
Even with his unbelievable story.
Yeah, unbelievable story.
And even though we've made incredible inroads,
right,
we still don't have a guarantee that there's going to be a
right,
movie.
and that. So, what exactly happened? Because you're actually following a little bit of Dave's philosophy in that you're preparing for that moment. What happened when you're sitting at the table and the guy who actually can help make this movie happen, says, I want to buy your book, sign your book,
What happened?
Yeah.
Well, it was before that. It was when that book was actually I just had printed out forms when I was still going through the drafts. Dave got asked to speak because he was an Olympic coach. He got asked to speak by actually a friend of mine, Liston Bechet, who's really a 5-time Olympian. He was both in the Summer Olympics as a decathlete, bobsledder in the Winter Olympics for 3 Olympics.
Wow, there's
and he's
diversity.
actually an Olympian in the art of Olympians. He's an artist.
Wow.
So, yeah, so there's actually an
That's-
Olympics for art, and he's run the World Olympics Association, and let's just say he's slightly connected, and so he's become a friend of ours through this journey, of people we meet and all this stuff. But Liston invited us to an event in Ohio with Tiffin University where they were bringing in about 40 people that had Olympic stories. And we went out and we spoke like 2 times a day in elementary schools. Dave and I spoke at a disability center for folks with disabilities. We spoke with the baseball team, all that kind of stuff. And they had all these people all over the city in this little town of Tiffin, but all these Olympians. And they had a big event where people like Dave were honored as being Olympians. And so we were a part of that for about 3 days. And a friend of Liston's, I'm going to leave their names out of it for right
Sure.
now. Let's just say he has some major influence. But we got to know him throughout the couple of days because we were all eating privately, and so just one of those things. And literally the last day of the event, I asked this young man, I said, have you really gotten to know and understand Dave's story? And he said, a little bit, but there's so many people here. And I showed him a picture of Dave pitching. It's actually the same picture that's on the cover of his book. And I showed him a picture, and it just so happens this man is a pretty good athlete himself. And then he's like, what? He's like, what? And so I was prepared for this moment. Remember what I said?
Exactly.
So I was prepared for this moment, and I said, well, Dave's the only professional baseball player that ever played on crutches. What? He had a 10-year career pitching a knuckleball. And I just gave him my little bits and pieces that I've stored in my brain over the last 10, 11 years now. And went and introduced him again. They'd already met, but got a picture with them. And it was like he had Christmas Day. Light bulbs going off. And before you know it, we're having Zoom meetings in Moscow and Zoom meetings when he's in LA and Zoom meetings when he's in France or all over the place. And he helped repackage the script for us, working with Dave and I, asking us questions, and basically we've signed a movie deal with them. And of course the pandemic hit right after we signed this deal, so that's potentially slowing things down. He's actually he's an actor with Michael Douglas's son right now, and he's the main character in a movie, so that's just coming out. And so there's things, moving along, and we'll see where it goes. It's
awesome.
But there's still no guarantee, no promise. But I think we're in good hands. I'll just say that.
I'm going to stand up because I want everybody to see the logo.
Well, I got my logo here.
Yeah, you got your logo. So I'm very proud of this. I also received the Pulling Along Award, which was a really surprise to me. I didn't expect to receive it.
Yeah, we like to surprise people with that. That's kind of always when we can. We can't
Sure.
always, but when we can.
So let's talk a little bit about Disability Dream and Do, because that's something that you promoted early on, And you know, we were talking in the car coming up here a little bit about how you increment your way up, and that was one of the first things that you did. And you know, because you saw how this whole thing could affect children that are challenged, limited.
So really, I would have to say I took Dave's leadership on this. Dave has been doing, and you can see in his book, pictures with veterans hospitals and other video that I've gotten and found throughout the years. He's been doing sports events, special events for children and young adults and adults with disabilities since the 70s. There's nothing, you know, this is like, he's not like a new timer to this game. He owned a team, and so he would gather his players and he would set up a special needs clinic, and you know, in Indiana and different places. You know, he's been doing this at the YMCA in Bath, New York,
sure,
for the veterans. And so this was nothing new. And actually 16 years ago, when he moved to Florida, he met with Mike Veck, who's a fairly big name in sports. Mike wrote the foreword for Dave's book. His father, Bill Veck, was the owner of the Chicago White Sox and the big promoter of baseball. Mike was an owner of a team down there, a Fort Myers minor league team, and put Dave in contact with Steve Gliner, who was the general manager there at the time. Steve wound up talking with Dave about doing a special needs camp for children with the team. And basically that happened for about 3 or 4 years down in Fort Myers, Florida, at the spring training facility. And one of the beautiful things that happened is the manager at that time, Kevin Bowles, decided that if we're going to do a special needs camp, you're going to get every player. You're not going to just get one player, you're going to get every player. And so 20 or 30 kids, young adults, came to this event. Every player was out there on the field doing drills. And Dave, in his knowledge of doing this for years, didn't try to set up a baseball game where they're all standing around doing nothing.
Oh, I know. It's great. It's a great event.
He set up a station like it's a professional baseball practice, spread out all these professional players all over the field, and let these kids hit, run, hit off a tee, do all the different things that a player is going to do in their practice with soft equipment. Balls are flying everywhere. You know, you got to keep it safe. And the energies.
Oh, if you're not moved, if you attend one of these things,
it's amazing.
Yeah, you have no soul.
And every time, I mean, I see the pictures and I get chills when I watch the pictures afterward, because I'm directing the camps now.
Yeah.
So I saw one of mine for the first time about 10 years ago, and Dave and I had a business meeting, and you know, he knew I wanted to do a movie and a documentary and children's books. That was all part of my vision and plan. Sure. But what he told me in that meeting, he says, Doug, I want to do more camps for kids with disabilities. That's what I want to leave as my legacy. Okay. So I started getting with people like you and Barry Nicholson and Karen Hogue, and, you know, and I brought it back to Corning. And they were like, yep, and even writing checks and doing the things, because, you know, we're giving T-shirts, we're giving hats, we're feeding. Well, now we feed up to 200-300 people in an event.
Yeah.
And it's all free, because Dave and I said we'd never do it if we had to charge people.
Yep.
And
it keeps growing.
Well, it was growing. COVID's kind of put the hit on us a little bit, but we're getting some more programs. It looks like we're going to be in Hickory, North Carolina this year, and we're actually going to be working with the Yankees, it looks like, this year.
Oh, that's awesome.
For the first time. Now, we're probably not getting the players or all the players, and probably not any, you know, right now because of the COVID situation. But we have to think differently.
We got to get you to Pittsburgh.
Well, Pittsburgh would be good, especially now with some of my contacts in Pittsburgh.
I know you have some, and I'm building some contacts.
I see the Steelers.
I'm building some contacts there as well with our new office down there.
So
one of the big memories, big takeaways for me with Disability Dream and Do is when the kids run around and slap.
High five game.
High five.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And you know, that's
so simple.
Oh.
But all we do is we take like a makeshift, like almost like a little wiffle ball field, and we put bases on the field.
Yep.
And we get the players to do like a horseshoe around the bases. Somebody gets up, they can hit it 1 inch, or they can hit it over the fence, and they're running and they're giving high fives to all these players, and everybody's cheering. And
smiles, ear to ear smiles. But I have to tell you real quick, I was walking down Market Street in Corning, and you know, I'm walking along and I'm not really paying attention, and you know, I'm talking with my hands right, And I put my hand up like that, and one of the Disability Dream and Do kids was coming the other way.
Gives
Goes,
you a high five.
high five like that. It was so funny. And I turned around and look, and he goes, I know you, and you know who it is. It's Tony. Was it? I think it's Tony or Dave.
I don't know. I mean,
He's one of the older ones now.
Okay.
I think he may have graduated now.
But no, they still come.
They still come.
And we don't put an age limit. That's another difference with our, you know. And it's funny, people talk about inclusion. We don't put. It doesn't matter what sex you are. It doesn't matter what orientation you are. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what disability you have. It's inclusive.
Yeah.
And obviously, volunteers that don't have disabilities get to be involved as well.
And you know, if you've never been to one, you're again, you're visibly moved. Your soul is. If
it's not, you don't have a soul. I mean,
Yeah.
soulless.
Yeah. So the parents, so now, I mean, I've been to enough of them now to where I kind of got the routine down. I know I'm going to see all kinds of smiles. Kids are going to have great. So now what I've done is I've taken to observing the parents.
Yeah.
And see how they have a different outlook now.
So one of the things that I share when I get to speak about this, and this has happened to Dave and I, it's happened to me personally as well, individually, but usually, for whatever reason, it happens when Dave and I are together, and he'll be in his scooter, a parent, because part of with our pro camps, doesn't happen in Cornfield, but with our pro camps, the parents and the children get an opportunity to come back and watch the team play the game.
Sure.
So we arrange to get tickets for everybody. And Dave, because he's in a scooter, will be sitting in the ADA section. And I'm usually I'm in a chair beside him. And the people are up in the stands or wherever they are, and some will come down to us and want to talk to us and greet us. And what's happened numerous times, typically moms, but I also have a dad story, they walk up to us to say thank you, Jim, and they can't get the words out.
Yeah, I can believe that.
They literally can't get the words out. And that's probably one of the best thank yous I can get.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What's your dad's story?
My dad's story.
Yeah, you said you had a dad's story. Or did I?
Oh, it's the same thing.
Oh.
A dad,
Yeah.
a dad coming, he was blobbering so much, it's funny, it's a memory. I wish I had it on video. Because he literally said it was like the gift that kept on giving. That was one of the things that I remember him saying.
Yeah.
He said it was the gift that kept on giving, because we give out hats and t-shirts to start. They get to have this day where they get to play. Then we have the high five game, and then they all get fed, and and then they're signing autographs. And I think that year one of the years we gave out the children's book to everybody.
Yeah, I get messages, Disability Dream and Do, ? People want to know where.
Yeah.
When's it going to be? Where's it going to be this year?
Right now we're still trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
It looks like we're going to do a D3 program in Fort Myers on May 1st is what we're trying to schedule. So Dave's actually working on a field because the minor league field's probably not going to be available for us.
So disabilitydreamanddo.com, right?
D3 Day.
D3 Day.
D3 Day, the number 3, d3day.com to keep it really short.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've got your jar of honey there, which is from the Finger Lakes region, correct?
It is, this one.
Yeah.
What we do in Florida as well.
Yeah, so the reason we have this here is to talk about it a little bit, because as Doug is on his journey to promotion, in the beginning, and nobody's throwing a lot of money at you. You've got to, you're going day by day. So Doug has come up with a series of promotional products. And
started with this. That's why we have this.
Started with the honey, and you've got.
This is actually our Florida orange, but
yeah, I've had it.
Yeah.
I'm partial to the Finger Lakes, but so you've got all the cheeses from the Finger Lakes. You've got the honey, and my favorite, the maple syrup.
Yeah, we got maple syrup, pure certified organic maple syrup from the area, and that Dave talks about desperation oftentimes will produce your best.
Sure.
And we had gotten to the point where we were basically desperate.
Sure.
To keep this thing moving, we were desperate. We weren't getting speaking events. The market had just crashed, and Dave didn't have the story out there, and so when you're trying to we got some speaking events and but to get real fees for a speaking event were pretty difficult at the time. And I just had somebody that says, hey, I want to help you with a honey product. He helped me kind of design this. His intentions were to sell it, but he didn't know how to sell it very well. And so I kind of took it on my own.
Sure.
But because we're from Corning and it's a glass town, I wound up taking Dave's logos of him batting, pitching, and fielding. And we created this collector's mug cutting it and connecting it to Corning because
Sure.
we're a glass town, and we filled it with raw local honey. And again, we do this in upstate New York and down in Florida. And one of the reasons I knew this was going to be good is because I went to my wife with the idea. She goes, "Well, I love honey." I mean,
Sure.
It's like that's a good thing to sell or whatever.
Yeah.
And so kind of the short story to be told is I had no idea. I know I can sell things, and I've had
Sure.
a background. I was a consultant for starting with new products. And so I put this out on a table, and I went to the director of the Wine Glass Marathon years ago. And I said, "Hey, I've got this." And he goes, "I'd like to set up at your registration area." He gave me a table. I set up books and hats, and Dave had this book out, and we had a DVD at the time, and I thought we would sell a whole bunch of that stuff. Well, we sold about $3,000 worth of honey in a day and a half.
I know.
Because everybody wanted honey.
Yep.
And of course, when you're saying, okay, honey was the one thing that was not in our business plan.
What, was cheese in your business?
No,
plan?
none of that. No,
You
cheese,
sell
honey.
a bunch of cheese as well.
But I say honey was the catalyst for all the other products. Children's books was in my business plan. The movie, documentaries, business plan, speaking events, business plan. Honey was not, but it's become our biggest revenue.
Yeah, that's the thing that pays the bills every day. Puts
Right.
gas in your car, gets you out there, gets you.
Keeps us doing these camps for free.
Yes.
And people have now come, literally I can be in the airport now and, don't tell my wife this, although it's on a video. Somebody will come, "But you're my honey guy."
Yeah.
I'm like, or my cheese guy. I've gotten
Yeah.
that too.
Oh, for sure.
But we focused on just a local product concept, and then because of past backgrounds in my children's entertainment industry, which I also come out of,
Sure.
in the 90s, I set up at our local mall because it was the closest nearby. It's not the greatest mall, but we were able to create a fan base of people that love Dave Clark baseball
Yep.
products.
So let's focus on the true salesman in your company, your children. So
Oh my gosh.
Gideon is a master salesperson, and refresh my memory. Who's the younger one?
Well, I've got Gabriel and
Gabriel.
Doug Jr., DJ.
Yeah.
They're both
Yeah.
incredible as well, especially when they were little.
Yeah, those guys. I'd be walking down. They'd be walking.
You know how that started, Jim?
No.
Yeah, when we started setting up on Market Street as vendors, because they wanted to be a part of it or whatever, and so I had them just handing out a flyer, just one of our flyers.
Yeah.
And they would be, of course, they're two brothers that are a year and a half apart, and everything has to become a competition.
Sure.
I sold 30 flyers. No, I sold 35 flyers, before you know it. And then before you know it, they were so cute. I mean, you know how cute
Yep.
they are. They're 15 and 16 now, but this is 7-8 years
Sure.
ago. They're as cute as can be, and they're very articulate.
Yes.
And so they would hand somebody a flyer, and somebody would start asking them, "What's this about?" And before you know it, they're bringing people over. And we had this numerous times. I don't care what you're selling, I want it.
Yeah.
And it was because of those two little boys.
Yeah. Gabriel,
but Gideon,
yeah. Or Gideon, rather. Excuse me.
Gideon, he wanted to be a part of the sales. He was actually a really driving force. He went door to door selling Dave's book because he wanted to.
He is going to be extremely successful. When he sees me walking down the street,
We always like taking money out of your pocket.
I know, but no, he says to me, "You ought to be out of honey by now." And I'm like, "Well, I got some honey, but I'm out of maple syrup."
Yeah, or something. Cheese, tea now. We've done coffee in the past. And,
Yep.
and of course, you're good for buying a book or two if you need it. So it's amazing, the steps that, we talk about the steps. And that really draws from the story of Dave getting his first chance. And this is actually going to be in a new book coming up called Pulling Each Other Along. So I'm working on a new book project. It's at the editor. You try to stay optimistically conservative, but this is pretty exciting. Just one thing, because where I'm sitting here looking at all these footballs in the football room, is Terry Bradshaw wrote the foreword.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you brought that up because it's a great concept, and you're a master storyteller and a master promoter, and this book really is the icing.
Well, I guess, but it was just we wouldn't be doing this if it weren't for COVID. Literally last night, I had my first team meeting with what I'm calling the Pulling Each Other Along team, which are amazing people. Not that everybody's not amazing, but these people, some of them have disabilities, hardships, cancer, Down syndrome, all of these different stories, and we've collected them in, let's just say, like a chicken soup for the soul type of concept. So you're not getting their whole story, but you're getting what pulled them along in their life. What was the catalyst? Who was there? What was there? Because in some cases, it's not who, it's what.
Sure.
And we put these stories together. Even the game designer who designed the game Operation is a part of this book. Everybody knows the game Operation, but they don't know the real story, like in the Paul Harvey days or whatever. Yeah. It was Paul Harvey, yeah. And so, back in the real days, we've got the real story behind the Operation.
And I love that whole Paul Harvey concept. The rest of and here's the know this. Here's the rest of the story.
That shows our age right there a little bit.
Well, speaking of age, so I'm real excited because we're talking about Rocky Bleier.
Yeah,
and I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. You got the Iron Curtain, Bradshaw, Franco Harris, all these guys. And, I mentioned Rocky Bleier to Morgan, and he goes, who?
Yeah, it's so sad. So sad.
And I don't say that to embarrass Morgan. Morgan knows I love him, and I would never do that. I say that to underscore that it's important for storytellers like yourself to keep those storytellers going from one generation to the next.
Yeah, and Rocky, of course, our age for the most part. If you were in sports at all, and you mentioned the name Rocky Bleier, you're like, you got Rocky Bleier in your book?
Yeah.
It's like, how'd you do that?
Yeah.
Well, just because I kept doing.
Yeah.
And I got the fortune of literally being on the same press table when I flew out to Minneapolis to help with the Wounded Warrior Amputee football team that I work with a little bit, through Dave Stevens more on that one, my other Dave. And as it would be, Rocky and I were literally this far apart and a table this wide on Radio Row, like the whole day.
Yeah.
And of course I got to share Dave Clark and tell him what we're doing with Disability Dream and Do, got his cell phone, and just connected with him once or twice since then. And then when I came up with this pulling each other along concept, I literally called him. He was like, I put a list of 50 people down of who I wanted to contact to be potentially a part of this book, not knowing. But Rocky was, of course, like one.
Yeah.
It's like he was like one on my list. And that doesn't mean to diminish anybody else. But I called Rocky, left a message on his cell phone. Literally, he calls me that morning. Before I can even say, hi, Rocky, he goes, yep, Doug, I'm in, I love it. I'm like, this is too easy. It's never this easy. And that's how it went. I said I have a list of 50. I probably got through like 10 or 12 of my list.
Yeah, you've got 2 or 3 more books.
Well, that's what we hope.
Yeah, this is great. We would be remiss if we didn't mention Dave Stevens.
Yeah, well, we just did.
Yeah,
so my other Dave.
Yeah,
I get these 2 great Daves.
Yeah, the 2 Daves.
And he's in the book as well.
Yeah.
First pulling
he's another guy that you need to now.
Dave Stevens Speaks is his website, d3day.com. Dave Stevens Speaks. A Pound of Kindness for those, and I'll just throw a little promo out there. apoundofkindness.net. If you go there, you get a coloring book, and I'll sign it for you.
Oh, by the way, coloring is very therapeutic.
Yeah. So you can be therapized.
I've colored that coloring book. When I get stressed, I color.
So I do this little coloring book. You get that. I'll sign it for you. And if you use the promo code D3Day, D again, the number 3Day, we'll ship it to you for free.
So I just want to shine a spotlight on Dave Stevens a little bit.
Yeah.
There's an incredible video. Dave was born
no legs.
No legs.
Yeah.
No legs.
A couple of feet with some limited toes.
Yeah.
But
and the stuff that he does
amazing.
Is absolutely.
He's a little wacko.
Oh, I love him.
Yeah.
He's great.
In a good way wacko.
Yeah, a good way wacko. But there is a video. The first time I saw it, my jaw dropped.
Yeah.
So you think about what happens when you hike a football and the action. And this bruiser of a guy, they hand him off the football and he's running through the line, and there's Dave Stevens just whack, grabs him and down he goes.
Created a fumble.
And
that was at the college level.
Yeah, at the Division I level?
No, Division III. But
Division III level. Well, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But And I've probably watched that video 100 times.
Right.
I just want to see how he did it.
And so, believe it or not, the story that he shared, because again, this is not his life story, this is a story of what pulled him along, actually has to do with his friend Darryl Strawberry.
Yeah. There's another great video of him hitting baseballs off of a pitching machine.
Yeah.
Whack.
Yeah, he does that a
Whack.
lot.
Just.
Yeah. You know, it's amazing. He played high school, he played college. He was a 2-time state champion wrestler in high school.
I know. He told me that.
But you flash forward to some, I don't know, 37, 8, I don't know how many years he's been in broadcasting now, but he's got 7 Emmys
Right.
to his name as well.
Correct me. Currently ESPN?
No, he's with, he's actually just started a new program with Quinnipiac College, and it's called, I try to get this right, Ability Media, and he's starting a program where folks with disabilities and to do media, and he's heading this up, spearheading it, and it's literally going viral. Ability Media.
A pound of kindness, Doug Cornfield. If you ever need anything promoted and you want to be successful, contact this man right here, Doug Cornfield.
Thanks.
He'll
Thanks,
promote
Jim.
your way to success.
Well, hopefully, you know.
Yeah. Risky Bizz, we're out.